This is Creating Your Encore Career and Becoming a Silver Entrepreneur with your host, Lynn Freest. Lynn will share ideas and expert advice from people that are walking in your shoes and living their encore careers, where they want and at the pace they want. You'll start a company of one with confidence and knowledge to live a fulfilled life of freedom and ease. Lynn is a coach and leadership consultant whose mission is to show senior leaders and experts how to start something refreshing and new after a full career in the corporate environment.
Welcome to this episode of Creating Your Encore Career and Becoming a Silver Entrepreneur. Thanks for listening. Today's episode is number 155, and it's about the key elements for an encore career. Now, episode 154 was a replay of a wonderful conversation I had with Steve Preston about creating portfolio careers. And just in recap, different elements can go into creating your encore career. And there can be elements that are paid for, elements you do just as a volunteer, elements you are in learning. So I think that's still a very valuable perspective to keep in mind as we move forward. Now, today, I'm just going to review some of the elements of an encore career as I see it today. And I think I've talked about this in past episodes, but as I've learned more and talked with people, my thoughts and ideas have changed, grown, shifted a little. So we'll just go into some of these things. The first one is looking into your purpose. Now, my work with the Modern Elder Academy, they spend a lot of time talking about purpose and really rediscovering your purpose as you hit this encore stage of your life. So I think it probably deserves more, probably have a whole episode, and I've done some episodes in the past on it, but this is something that, again, really understanding what your purpose is. And while I can talk about it, it's always something that you have to create for yourself. A couple key ideas that might be useful is, what's your 10-year goal? So you might say, I'm retiring from corporate life. Okay, and that's fine. But where do you want to be in 10 years? Or acknowledging the fact that you may have 30 years more in life. And so what's going to happen in each of 3 decades going forward? Again, these are things that probably deserve some time and study on your part. Another thing, I've talked about this before, is your mindsets or perspectives. As you leave the corporate world and launch into either retirement, an encore career, whatever is next, the way you thought about things, the way you looked at things, all those things are going to be different. Even the habits you had of working, there's going to be a change there. And I think in one of the episodes I talked about, there's going to be a year of confusion after you leave the corporate life. Just be aware of that. Then I think journaling. It's something I've been doing for quite a few years now. I won't say I'm great at it, but this whole idea of journaling, kind of writing down your thoughts. It's one thing to have things swirling around in your head, but I think it's very useful to have things that you write it out on paper. And whether you ever read it again or not really doesn't almost matter, but it's there. It can be useful to go back and look and see what your thoughts were 6 months ago or whatever it may be. But again, this whole idea of just writing it down each day, and it doesn't have to be long. One of the journals I've used is a 5-minute journal, or I've heard them called bullet point journals. So it's mainly just capturing something very shortly. You don't have to write pages and pages of stuff. You can also use prompts for these journaling. The book Beyond Emotional Intelligence, they have a whole set of what they call self-discoveries that are really prompts for either journaling or thinking, but they're really most valuable in journaling. So one of them is, your focus defines what you're going to be doing. So how do you manage your focus? So those are the kinds of things I think journaling really helps. And then in line with this is ideas of mindfulness, thinking about your thinking, as it were, understanding yourself. So there's something there in however you do it. And it doesn't have to be meditation. I do meditation myself. And it doesn't have to be going off to a mountain somewhere. But it can be, hey, let's just go for a brisk walk after lunch. Or I'll go out and just sit there and look at the sun for a while. One book I've been reading recently is an art professor required their students to sit and look at one painting for 2 hours. They couldn't do anything else. They had to look at one painting for 2 hours. And most of them thought it was a tedious, terrible thing until they probably got into the second hour. And then all of a sudden, since they were there, they started noticing more things about the painting. So that's just one of those things that mindfulness is really about noticing also. So find whatever your vehicle is or your way it is to notice what's going on in the world and in your own thinking. I mentioned this next element before, which was really about developing new routines or habits. I don't know. I think the numbers I've heard before is 40% of our waking hours are done out of habit or routine. And I'm sure in your corporate life, whether you knew it or not, now you can look back and recognize it. There were specific things you did every day. And in the end, you never thought much about them. Even in today's world, we probably don't do a lot of time thinking as we brush our teeth, but we do it pretty much all the time. So it's one of those things where as you look at your purpose, look at what you want to do. If you want to start an Encore career, what are the new routines or the new habits that you want to create? Because it can be almost disorienting as you leave the structure of the habits and routines of your corporate life to now suddenly be free to do whatever you want. It's still a good idea to create some new structures, whatever those structures might be. For me, it might be getting up and journaling every morning before I start doing whatever I do. So those are the kinds of things I think this whole idea of habit and routine, we probably don't pay enough attention to. The next element I think of in an Encore career is creating your value proposition. Now, that's a term that comes out of the arena of business model generation, the lean startup process. So it's really, what are you good at? How can I help others? How can I provide value to other people or organizations? And again, and I've talked to this many times, but this whole idea of your value is not your former job titles. It's not your former company. Your value proposition is how you're going to help someone else solve the problems that they have. So again, this is something that takes maybe some time to uncover, because I think I've used the example before. You might say, I'm good at supply chain management. Maybe what you're really good at is, I know how to create a supply chain in multiple countries. Or I know what to do when a significant supply chain is disrupted, how to recover from that. So value proposition is also a kind of, could be called niching down. So if you had a job title that is broad, you might want to think moving forward, hey, here's something. And the other thing is, here's something I really am interested in doing. I really have energy around. And it could be, like I said, only a piece of what you may have called my job before. Again, I mentioned the business plan, the business model generation books and organization. And I still think this whole business plan thing is pretty useful. They have a one-page document we use in lean startup training programs for new entrepreneurs. So you don't need a 100-page business plan. Often investors say those aren't very useful. But you do need a one-page one that has the key elements that you need to think about for your business in an Encore career. And this can be done as an individual. It doesn't have to be done as a company type setting. You can have your own personalized, my personal business plan. The next step I think of is you really need to think about what are some of the skills either you have or you need to develop as you go into your Encore career. So I think of business skills. You may need to have some work on get some help or learn about accounting. Again, in the corporate world, you probably did, unless you were in the accounting department, you didn't have to worry about that element. Likewise with marketing skills. And even if you were in the marketing department, what you're marketing now is yourself, and that's a different set of skills. And then this whole idea of if you're going to be a consultant, there are specific skills. You're no longer the authority based on your position. You're actually having to go out and say, I need to sell myself as a consultant, and then I need to have skills to work with people where I don't have any authority over them. They're hiring me to do something for them, so I may be the expert, but I'm not necessarily their boss, as it were. So this idea of you have to think through what are the skills that you either have or that you want to learn or that you're going to have somebody else do for you, tax preparation or accounting, or you might even hire people to do social media for you. So your marketing may be done that way. So this idea of what are the skills, and there are a lot of resources that we can help you with to figure out what those skills might be most useful to you. And then you have to think about in what order you may try to acquire them. Another interesting piece is, again, this is a meta type element, but it's how will you learn? How have you learned successfully in the past? There are all kinds of ways to do things. Some people like to go to conferences. Some people like online courses. Some people like to read books. But you have to think about how will you learn and how have you learned in the past? So what type of learning was most effective for you? This sort of the higher level, the meta skill of some of the other things. And as I've alluded to before, then you need to develop your practice plan. Okay, I learn best by reading a book. Okay, so how am I going to read the book and then implement the things that have come out of that book? What's my plan to practice those things? And this, again, really loops all the way back to the idea of habits. How do I do something so well that I can't do it wrong in the future? It's one of those things. And some of these things you're going to have to figure out. I'm probably not going to spend the time to get really good at that particular skill. I'm going to have somebody do that skill for me. And then building on the practice plan is this whole idea of, I'll say you have to develop your journey plan. What's the journey you plan to go through? And I go all the way back to the first thing I mentioned, which is maybe have a 10-year plan. So in many cases, we've heard people, and I've heard people say that it takes 12 to 18 months to start a new business. And that comes from people who have actually done it multiple times. So you have to think about what's the journey I'm going to go through personally. And it is. Some of it's very much a personal journey. Some of it's a business journey. Some of it creating a name for yourself or creating enough connections. All these take a period of time. So it helps to have some sort of a journey plan, a long-range plan, along with daily action items that will say, okay, it'll sustain you as you go through the periods of, I'm not sure anybody's even listening to me, or the self-doubt periods. So having that journey plan recognized, and it does take some time, I think is very useful. And the last element, and it's probably what I would view as really the most important element, is you're going to, in your Encore career, you're going to need to find new people, get involved in new communities, develop new connections. It's not that you need to forget all the people you knew and loved and worked with before, but inherently there's going to be some new people you want and need to connect with. So that can be just as intentional as learning business skills. I am going to intentionally seek out, and this isn't to spam people or isn't to not hand out massive numbers of business cards and stuff like that, but this is to find people that you're interested in, people that you might be able to help, people that might be able to help you. But it's more about just connecting with people that maybe you're on the same journey you're on, connecting with people that are in interesting areas that you'd like to work in. But this is just, again, it's often done very haphazardly. I know I've done this, but I think it can be done more usefully if you have some intention around it, saying, who are the next 100 people I should get to know that would really help me be effective in serving others? And then just say, and ask others. As you talk to somebody who says, who else do you think I should know? That's always when we talk with people about customer discovery. The last question you always ask everybody is, who else do you think I should talk to? And that's especially true here in this build your new network, build your new circle of acquaintances, build your new set of connections. Always be saying, who else do you think I should talk to? That sort of concludes today's episode. And again, I want to offer that I'll soon be offering openings in my Encore Career group coaching program. And this is a program that will enable you and a peer group to launch and develop your own Encore careers. So to help you get off to a powerful start in your journey, please contact me. And again, my references and things are all in the show notes, so you can connect with me or get what I call my quick start for getting your new mindfulness ideas started. Just to wrap it up, with an Encore career, the rewards are great. You can work when you want, where you want, and do the work you love. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.